thanks so much for joining us. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America, and in this series of shows, we are looking at race and racism in America. Today, we're tackling voting, more to the point, voter suppression in America and the importance of the upcoming census. And we're doing it by considering a performance piece called Casting the Vote, a call to a count. With us today, the creators of Casting the Vote, award-winning filmmaker and author June Cross, who is returning as a guest here on Black America. She founded and runs the documentary program at the Columbia University J School. And MIT professor Charlotte Brathwaite, award-winning director whose works have been seen around the world. And thank you both so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having us.
You know, you couldn't have picked a more topical performance piece than the census, voting, voter suppression. We want to get to that in just a minute, but I do want to set the piece, so to speak, by having you relate how you relate to Black America. We always ask our guests to place themselves in Black America.
Place myself in Black America. I was born into Black America. Black America saved me. I was born in 1954, pre-civil rights America. My mother was white, my father was Black, and my mother basically couldn't figure out how to deal with a Black child, and had it not been for the Black community, I'd be a broken child. So I am a whole person because of Black America.
Because of Black America, and we still want to do the film version of your book, Secret Daughter. It's
one day.
Just phenomenal. We're gonna get that done. Charlotte, I know you're Canadian, but how do you relate to Black America?
Part of America.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, I think I represent, or I belong to, the larger sense of America. My family's from Barbados, and I was born in England and raised in Canada, and I came to New York when I was 15. And Ellen Stewart, who is the founder and former director of La Mama Theater.
The wonderful, iconic.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and she brought me in many ways. Her idea was that, all of the world is also part of who you are, and so I think of myself as being part of Black America as representing a lot of ideas and the fullness of what Black America can be. Yeah.
So now you have together created a performance piece, a play that has video and music and all kinds of things in it, and dinner, which
And it is not dinner theater.
It's not dinner theater, right? And, this is a participatory. I mean, it is. It's going to be phenomenal as it travels across the country, which I absolutely hope it will. It was just at La Mama, but talk to us, June, about coming up with this idea.
I make documentary films, and normally, we sit down, we interview people, and we sort of add shots on top of that. And what happened was, after the 2016 election, there began to be these stories about how social media had manipulated the voters. And there was a list at one point. My colleague, Jonathan Albright, at the Tow Center at Columbia, had published a list of all of the fake accounts that had been invented by the Russian intelligence agency. And as I went down the list, one of the names jumped out at me. It was Blacktivist. And I recognized Blacktivist because I had been following Blacktivist.
You, June?
Me, June Cross.
Had been duped into following a Russian
had been duped
bot?
by the Russian intelligence agency. And this was actually, it was sort of, it was not quite a bot, it was a persona. So they actually have levels of things. They have bots that are just computers that are plowing out things. And they actually had people who were pretending to be Black, who would just publish these sort of culturally relevant things for African Americans. And in 2016, in my naive state of thinking, it must be a real person publishing this.
Right, sure.
It was, kids talking about Black history and.
So now but you said in the beginning when you started following it was innocuous, and then at a certain point it turned.
Yeah. It turned into anti-Hillary. Yes.
Anti-Hillary. So this
the last 2 weeks before the election,
really
it became an anti-Hillary thing, and it began to. At that point, my radar went off because it wasn't. They were using Ava DuVernay's 13th, but they weren't using the parts of Ava DuVernay's 13th that talked about Ronald Reagan and how just saying no had led to the changes in the initial changes in the drug law. It was only focusing on the Clintons. And then that actually began to go viral within the Black community. And at that point, I was like, something's off. I had no idea that it was Russians, but even like my radar went off. And so I stopped reposting at that point. And then later, as I did the research, I found out that African Americans, in fact, had been most often targeted by social media across all of the social media platforms. And I was like, okay, wow, this is a fascinating story, but how do we engage people with this information? Because if I just sit people down and talk about it dryly, nobody cares. So I was like, you know, how could I present it in a performative way? So I approached Charlotte about working with me on this idea of performative data, and we got a grant from the Brown Institute for Media Innovation, which funds experimental journalism. So this is experimental journalism.
And so June hands you this assignment and says, Charlotte, make
Here's
this.
my research.
Yeah.
Make a play.
Right. Make this enticing, thrilling theater.
Yeah. I mean, I got a Google Drive with tons of folders with, you know, data and videos and articles, and also a suggestion to read Carol Anderson's book, One Person, No Vote. And
Esteemed, researcher and writer.
Yeah.
Carol Anderson.
And, you know, like the feeling at first was like, man, this is so heavy. This is so dark, you know, because we're living in the midst of it. And there's no happy ending. We're still kind of fighting, we're definitely fighting for some sense of clarity, right, in all of this. So basically, going through that material, I just started to put together a team of people that I thought would be able to, help translate it to the stage. And so working with a dramaturg, Sundar Ganglani, writer Janani Balasubramanian, and a musician, Justin Hicks. And so, first starting with those guys and, thinking about ways in which we could not only share the information, but also like create an event that made people feel like empowered by the information, because that was the other thing that was underneath all of this, all the negativity with all the like hiding and secrecy, was that there was like a force from the beginning, that was, pushing against it and demanding a right to be counted, one person, one vote, and so the idea for a dinner kind of came up, very intuitively, because I said to June, I just don't want to make something that makes people leave.
Come back from Africa.
Yeah, it was
and
just.
Then you've been to something. I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, I had been in a festival in Ghana, and I was just like, the legacy of Blackness and Africanness is one of like persistence and resistance and joy. And I was like, I want to make something that
joyful.
gives people the information, but also leaves them feeling joyful and
full,
forward-footed, and forward-footed, like
right, yes, forward-footed, but also full, because this happens around a dinner. And I know I asked you when we were talking, I said, so what are you serving? And I said, I'm definitely coming, all the things I love. So we have a clip. Let's take a look at that, and we'll talk about it on the other side. Okay.
The way I looked at it, I thought that the Russians hadn't hacked democracy. What they did was they hacked racism. Really, the whole experience of African Americans in this country is an experience to try to advance American democracy. And the experience of African Americans in America is a litmus test of whether or not that democracy is going to succeed.
So the following are questions asked of U.S. citizens trying to vote in the not-so-distant past.
Can you interpret Section 260 from the Alabama Constitution? Everybody in this room would have been struck from the voter rolls at one point in our nation's history.
1865, the 13th Amendment abolishes slavery.
1868, the 14th Amendment makes former slave citizens.
1869, the 15th Amendment extends the right to vote to black men.
But in 1896, Louisiana passes grandfather clauses, which prevent former slaves and their descendants from voting. As a result, the percentage of registered black voters drops from 45% to just 4%. Mississippi, South Carolina, Alabama, and Virginia soon follow suit.
Wow. So clearly, I mean, it's so moving. It is totally participatory. If you come to this performance, to this play, you do not sit back and watch everything. You are a part of the discussion. And you have a series of questions that you ask the attendees of this. What are the questions you ask, and what are the answers that you get from people? Because you're really exploring what democracy is and why, you know, African Americans have not been able to fully participate in this democracy.
Right. I think the first one is, who can you count on?
Yeah, so the first question we ask audiences is to first of all, to introduce themselves to a stranger, right, and then to tell, to share someone they can count on, an ancestor they can count, someone in their life that they can count on. And I think, that, and also we ask them to say, to call out the name of an ancestor. I think on the idea that we're standing on other people's shoulders, we're here, we're able to have conversations like this because of that. Another kind of question that we get asked early on in the evening in small group setting is like, what's your relationship to democracy? And that question also starts our rehearsal process. The first day, we're working with an incredible group of young people, Impact Repertory Theater,
right,
Harlem.
Oh my God, they're amazing.
And yeah.
So phenomenal.
Yeah, like not just phenomenal because they're amazing performers or, like that is like definitely a plus, but also phenomenal because they are so invested in being part of the democracy. But really on the first day, of rehearsal, I remember some of their answers being like, I don't feel part of the democracy. I don't feel like there's space in the democracy for me. And I think what has been so great in this process, and you'll see that in the program for the show, it's like they've written what they've learned in the process. And
right, sure.
Many of them have said things like, I've realized I've got to get my voice out there, I've got to speak up. Some people also found that they were able to look at their own family and see how their own family was involved in the fight for making this democracy a truer democracy.
So one of the things you want to make sure of is that every 10 years this country is forced to do a census, to count who actually is here, and that's happening next year. I was surprised to learn that this time around you can respond online or by phone, which, I only remember the people knocking on your door saying, who's here, how are they related to you, and so this is for every person, whether or not they are a citizen. It has nothing to do with immigration status or citizenship. It is just who is here, because what's at stake is about $880 billion
of federal funds.
Of federal funds distributed.
And also the state legislature, who's going to be representing you in your own state house. And how they're going to draw the lines that will, how are they going to set the boundaries that will determine who represents you in Congress?
So a lot at stake, and yet there are so many people who don't know about it or are afraid of it, because of this, the administration's attempt to insert citizenship as a question, here. So how did the fear, I guess, is what you were experiencing as you do this play, of people who say they can't participate in this democracy because it's too frightening,
or just don't feel a part of it because it feels too far away from them.
Right.
One of the things that I did when I was doing the research was I went to Wisconsin. And I went to Wisconsin because 22,000 people.
I was going to say yes. Why did you go to Wisconsin?
I went to Wisconsin because it flipped for Trump. Trump won the state by 22,000 people, and 25,000 African Americans in Milwaukee did not show up to vote.
Right.
And that was a huge drop. It was a 10% drop, not from Obama, but even from Bush, the son, from 2003 to then. So I went there because it was a way to try to understand what was going on. And there was a young woman there named Angela Lang, who runs a thing called Block. And she was going door to door, grassroots, knocked on 150,000 doors in the Black community, and asked people, what is it that would make your communities work better? Instead of telling people to come out to vote, they asked the question, what is it that government is not meeting your needs? And she got a lot of those people come out.
Sure.
So they came back and they won the governorship in Wisconsin. So
we have.
I say that to say that people don't feel like government is at all responsive to their everyday lives.
Exactly, but we're in a desperate time now, so that next November, people really need to show up. 25,000 people didn't show up in this, Wisconsin. So,
but then we had record turnout in 2018. So, but anyway.
Yeah. So Stacey Abrams, we know Georgia. She lost the governorship, is working for a fair vote, and she's now joined up with supermajority, Cecile Richards, Alicia Garza from Black Lives Matter, and Aisha Mpu from the Domestic Workers Alliance, traveling this country, again, trying to raise visibility for voting. Let's take a listen to Stacey Abrams.
It is my responsibility. It is my responsibility to ensure that a democracy, and yes, we are a democracy. Yes, we are a nation that says that the voices that comprise who we are should be allowed to direct what we do. And right now, the direction is wrong. But we have an opportunity in 2019 and 2020 to right this ship, to turn this state around, to turn this nation around. Because anytime you can rattle off statistics about maternal mortality, about human trafficking, about mass incarceration, when we can talk about gun violence and we don't have to search our memory banks for the last time there was a mass shooting, that's a problem in this country.
And of course, one of the things she's talking about is the removal of people. I think the Brennan Center's latest figures is that 17 million people between 2016 and 18 were tossed off the voting rolls. 17 million people. So this is something that you address in casting the vote. Talk to us about that.
Well, we do a history. I'm gonna have to update that number. we do a history.
As I told you when I saw you drew the figure, you said 16. It's now 17.
It's now 17.
Million.
It's been another million since I started writing. So it's we give a history, and the idea is to show that the social media manipulation that happened in 2016 and continues till now is part of a long history of trying to keep people from the ballot.
So it's mostly, well, a lot of it is social media. A lot of it is just
there's a lot of laws. There's gerrymandering.
Exactly.
There's gerrymandering, which is drawing a district that's so tortured that only black people are on this side of the line and all the white people are on this side of the line, or vice versa.
Right.
There's sort of voter ID laws, making people pay poll taxes, which is what has happened in Florida, where 4 million former felons got the right to vote, and now they're being told they have to pay all their court fines before they can actually have the right to vote, which is another version of poll taxes. So gosh, what did I say? Voter ID, gerrymandering, poll taxes, social media manipulation.
Yeah. Presidential candidate Kamala Harris says that this foreign intervention into our voting is going back to Reconstruction and the Civil Rights Movement, where black people especially, were kept from the polls. So I think that now that you were,
and it's a Democrat and a Republican. Clinton.
Oh, right.
Clinton also had foreign interference in the election in which he was elected. So yes, this is it's not particular to any party, but there's like a synergy of the technology and the Republican ascendance to power that is making it particularly difficult at this moment.
Oh yeah, but we all remember that, the Deep South Democrats were the ones who, were making sure that black people did not vote.
Did not vote.
So the impact of your play. Talk to us about the people who walk out of there and how they are changed?
Yeah, well, in this section that June is talking about of the piece, where we kind of go back in history and look at the Constitution, you know, we're like calling out the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. We're coming right up until today into social media, and how that plays into our election. I mean, one of the things that I think is left and is said as a kind of mantra throughout the piece is democracy is created person to person. And I think June said that in one rehearsal when we were doing it, you know, doing the workshop back at MIT, and that has just like stuck in my head. And I think it does for a lot of people who come to the show, this idea that the democracy is not created by some dudes in Washington, you know, or it wasn't created a couple hundred years ago. You know, it's like how I treat you and how you treat me and how we live together in this like current moment, not in some other kind of imaginary history or future. Like it's like right now. And I think that's a really empowering thing for a lot of people, because especially for like the young people we're working with at Impact who aren't of age to vote, you know, and so them, you know,
You're certainly getting them primed to vote.
Oh,
you know?
completely. And I think, you know, I don't want to speak for them, but I feel like what I have seen is even from the 10-year-old, we've got a 10-year-old in the show. I mean, even he is more active in his sense of understanding of like what his power is as a citizen of this country and as a human being to be able to say, you know, when he sees something wrong, you know, and to call that out. And I think, you know, we just have to remember that we have the power. The demokrati, you know, the Greek root of the word is rule of the people, right?
Right.
That's us. That's not a them.
Right.
That's us.
It's us.
Yeah.
Well, you're certainly catching, you know, what the Constitution means to me. A tremendously successful Broadway, Kennedy Center, and it's traveling the country now. And talks about a woman's experience with the Constitution and how generations of Heidi Schreck, who wrote it and acts it, generations of her family were left out of the Constitution, and the women suffered because of it. And I think what your performance piece is doing is talking about African Americans and how, you know,
we're also left out of it. Also left out of it, but also pushed to include everybody else. I mean, you know, this is one of the things the 1619 Project talks about.
The New York Times,
we talked about the New York
terrific
Times
piece that begins the history of our country at 1619, the first delivery of the enslaved people to the borders, as opposed to
1776.
Yes, when the Constitution, which didn't include any of us.
So yeah, it's the story of African Americans in the United States has been the story of pushing the boundaries of who gets to be included, and at the same time, it's also sort of a litmus test for what I said in the thing, a litmus test for whether or not that democracy will succeed. Because unless we can include everybody who's on these shores in the democracy,
Right.
we can't have a democracy.
Right. So, and we haven't quite had it yet, right? So we think we had it.
It's a project.
We may be better than we were, but
the closer you know your destination, the more you slip sliding away sometimes.
Right, exactly. So we always finish by asking our guests to finish the statement: the power, the strength of Black America lies in. What do you think, Charlotte?
Our persistence.
Right.
You know, and I think our ability to, you know, be in the moment. I mean, I'm looking at this picture of Toni Morrison, and I'm just thinking, like, you know, to talk to this moment through the myriad of ways that we speak to this moment, you know, in journalism, in mothering, in our art making, in all of it. And so that's powerful.
June, do you have a?
Oh gosh, through our creativity.
Creativity.
Through our creativity. I mean, creativity in culture, creativity in thinking about strategies for legally undoing this Constitution that was originally created for propertied white men. Not even all white men were originally written in.
Slaveholders.
Yeah, only slaveholders were basically included. So yeah, I think our creativity and making a way out of no way.
Well, and you all certainly have expressed the creativity. Casting the vote is terrific, and I hope that we see it clear across the country leading up to the November election of 2020. We that experience and your voice, and thanks so much for creating it. And thank you for
Thanks for having us.
Thank
for
you.
being here. And thanks so much for your creativity in bringing this show. The creators of Casting the Vote, A Call to Count, June Cross and Charlotte Brathwaite. And thanks to you too for joining us today. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America, and we'll see you the next time.